I would like my time to be respected. So if you tell me a certain time, that's what I'm here for.
So, good evening, everybody. This is Greg Rector with Team MBS Media Draft Central, and this is Coach Gene Clemens.
How you
Yes,
doing?
sir. I'm doing very well, Mr. Gene. You and I cheer for two opposite teams. I cheer for the Dallas Cowboys, and of course, you cheer for the New York Giants. Um, but we're here to discuss the 2025 NFL Draft.
Yeah,
And
I think cheer is an interesting way of looking at it from my perspective. I root for good things because good things mean happy fans, and happy fans tune in to what you have to say about it, right? So
yeah,
when you have to say negative things, that becomes a little bit more problematic unless you are saying the exact same negative thing that they're saying it, then they love you, right?
yeah,
So
yeah, exactly right. So in terms of the 2025 NFL Draft here for your New York Giants, um, it started off pretty decently for you with Mr. Abdul Carter.
yeah, not upset at the pick. He was the value for him at that pick was great. I've been on record as saying I would have loved to have seen them do a or pull a Browns and turn that number 3 pick into a top 10 pick somewhere and a boatload of other picks. I know for a fact there were other people who were looking to try to get up there who really wanted Abdul Carter, where they didn't have to um go super far down in order to get there. But staying where they were staying once, the actual only generational talent was off the board in Travis Hunter, I felt like that was definitely the way for them to go if they were going to stay there at 3, to go ahead and take Abdul Carter if that's the guy that they had rated as the highest on their board.
And that's the key. He had to have been the best player available on the board at the time for the Giants, right?
Yeah. I want to say there's been discussion that he was the best player on their board. Like he was number 1 on their board. And because I really believe that if he wasn't number 1 on the board at 3, you should have just traded down, right? So like if he wasn't the guy, then go ahead and trade down and get more for him. But I think they had him as the dude, and so if he's the dude, then go with it.
Right, exactly. And again, because there weren't the top level quarterbacks this year, there wasn't really a lot of opportunity to move down in round 1. We know Jacksonville moved up to the second pick and Cleveland went down to 5, but outside of that, there wasn't really a huge amount of trade downs happening within the top of the draft this year, unlike other years, right?
Yeah, there was interest in the number 3 pick.
Yeah,
there was interest in the number 3 pick. Because of the lack of quarterback depth, there wasn't as much of the who we really need to get up. But I think that a lot of people look at Carter and they think that he's a generational talent at the position. And so they were looking at it, hey, we have a chance to get a generational talent. So in my mind, if you didn't think of him that way, it would have been a perfect opportunity to trade down, let somebody else take him. And now at anywhere between 6 and 10, which I think would have been reasonable, you could have still drafted a really good day 1 starter. And instead, they have a guy who can be a day 1 starter in Abdul Carter, but doesn't really there's really no pressing need at the position because Brian Burns was good last year. He's going into his prime. Kayvon Thibodeau had 5 sacks in 10 games. What are we extrapolating that out to if he plays a full season coming off of 11 and a half sacks the year before? So like I think that Thibodeau, who hasn't even gotten to his prime yet, is still ascending. You've got Burns, So Abdul Carter now allows you to have probably the best depth piece in the NFL when it comes to your 1-2-3. Like, I don't even think Philadelphia has a 1-2-3 at edge rusher that can compare to what the Giants have, because Philadelphia just lost a few of their edge rushers because you can't keep them all forever. They make too much money.
No, exactly right. And then, of course, you guys moved back into the round one, and you took the Ole Miss quarterback Jackson Dart. What did you make of that? What did you make of that decision?
I personally, I didn't agree with it. I've grown up understanding that more picks are better, right? And so giving up a premium pick, and what I consider, this is just me, no one else has to put their stamp on it. But to me, I think anything in the top 100 is a premium pick. You're getting someone in the top 100 that should be able to walk onto your team and start right now. That doesn't mean they have to, but they should be able to start right now. Unless you are a championship caliber team, taking projects in the first 3 rounds don't really make a lot of sense to me. So the Giants gave up 2. They gave up a 3rd round this year and a 3rd round next year and their early 2nd round pick number 34 to move up 9 spots and take Jackson Dart. Now, a lot of people believe that Dart was going to go to the Rams with the very next pick. And that is why the Giants made the move. So I say all of that about not liking the trade just to say, if Dart is your guy and you really think that he was going to go with the next pick, then you got to do what you got to do, right? But he better be your guy, right? He better be the man, or else people are going to say, yo, you gave up 2 premium picks in order to get him where you got him at. Instead of just letting the draft fall the way they fell, staying put at 34, and now having 2 third-round picks that you can have, which would have gave you 4 picks in the top 100. That is enough to be able to change some things about the way that your team looks with that level or that influx of talent in the top 100.
Yeah, and I actually had in our last mock draft that Jeff, Bill, Randall, and myself did on Draft Central, Jackson Dart was going to the Rams. He was going to the Rams in my final mock draft.
Yeah, so, I mean that was the proverbial wisdom from everybody who has something to say about it, that the Rams are going to take him. That's why they moved up. And then when they took him, we saw the Rams trade out of their pick, which I guess signaled that was the only person that they thought was worth the pick. I don't know. But I like what they did by trading down, because they collected a lot of picks and they set themselves up for 2026 to have multiple first-round picks if there is a quarterback that emerges as the elite, then, which I haven't seen in the 2026 class, if I'm being honest. Like, I don't think any of those guys are better than the top 3 guys or 4 guys that came out this year, but we'll see. Some people like Nussmeier. I don't think he's a very clutch performer. We'll see how that goes out. But for the Rams to push back, I thought it was smart. For the Giants to push up or to trade up, I think that they did what they felt they needed to do to get the player that they wanted. And clearly that was Jackson Dart. Although it gives me a lot of questions about their draft process and how much time they used scouting and evaluating and looking at and playing the courtship with Shedeur Sanders, only to then leak bad information on the young man, not take him, and facilitate the tumble of the decade. So it's interesting the way that happened. I'd love to know more on the inside of why they decided to do that to him, and not just go, hey, we're not going to pick him. right? Like
Right. Yep.
why put it out there? Because I was at the draft, and Bill and I were right next to each other when the rumors of a bad interview, not being prepared for an interview, started popping up.
At
And
the combine. At the combine.
we were all there. So everybody's saying that,
Yep.
insiders had this information. No, everybody had this information.
Yeah.
Every single person that was at the draft, at the combine, knew of this story the moment it was told. Like, nobody had this early.
Yeah.
Everybody knew. And when everybody knows, that tells me that somebody wanted this to get out, and they wanted everyone else to do the job for them, which is to repeat it and make it seem as if it was happening everywhere. And so then all of a sudden people started putting their own sauce on it. They started saying, oh, well, he went to these other teams and told them, I'm not going to fall that far, so I'm not going to. But we don't have any evidence that he said any of this stuff.
No.
We don't have any evidence that he's done any of it. And that's the part that really bothers me. I know that a lot of fans get upset when people were talking Shedeur Sanders during the draft, but it really is dumbfounding to see how this was handled. We've never seen anything like this before in the draft.
No, I mean, not even Aaron Rodgers, when he went from, being the number 1 pick, according to him, to the Niners. They took Alex Smith and he falls to 24. Well, that's still the first round.
Yes.
Right.
And nobody, there was no rumors dissing Aaron Rodgers that came out. It was just people deciding that they weren't going to, right? They weren't going to like draft him, right? For whatever reason. I thought that the reasons why is because at Cal, he didn't look like he looked in Green Bay. I think those several years that he got to sit on the bench and hone his craft turned him into a different quarterback than the one that came out of Cal. And that's okay. But nobody dissed him. No one tried to character assassinate him like they did Shedeur Sanders. And the fact that no one's investigated, no one's tried to understand, A, why they did it, and B, how this story makes any sense, is beyond me.
And again, when it comes to Shedeur, all those guys in those rooms with my color of skin, they don't understand that young man. But you know who did came out and said, yes, I do understand what Shedeur Sanders is all about? Old Jerry Jones, in his press conference, said, I understand the character of that young man, and he's a fine young man.
Yeah. I mean, Jerry Jones didn't have anything to lose.
No.
Because he has his quarterback that he's paying $60 million or $70 million to, so he's not in the market for a quarterback. It's easy for him to come out and tell the truth, right? Yep. But it's hard for these other people to come out and tell the truth. You know what I find really interesting about it, and I don't want to make this whole thing about Shedeur, but they said that Shedeur went into these interviews unprepared, that he went into there with arrogance and with an ego. I remember a story that Nate Burleson told about missing a flight to come for a show that they were doing on CBS. This is back when Coach Prime was still on CBS, and he missed the flight. And the truth is that he was out. He didn't make sure he made the flight. He didn't make it. And Deion Sanders went to a grown man who was already done with his career and told him, you have to be better. You cannot afford to do this. You have to go and treat this as so he's giving words of wisdom and advice and guidance to a grown man who's already had a successful NFL career and now is looking to break into a second career. He gave all that game and all that wisdom about being prepared and never walking into any place not ready to give your best and never giving them a reason to doubt you. And he didn't do that with his son. He let his son go into meetings unprepared. He let his son go into meetings being disrespectful. He let his son go into meetings not caring about the meeting and what type of impression that he made on the people, that
Yep.
doesn't sound like Deion Sanders.
No, it
Like,
doesn't.
it doesn't
And
sound like anything you know about Deion Sanders.
and I had said during this past college football season that the one thing Shedeur Sanders did that was wrong was when he threw his offensive line under the bus. I said, you don't do that. You just do not do that. I don't care what level you're talking about. You don't throw your offensive line under the bus with the media and expect that to be a good thing when you're coming to the NFL, because these guys are veterans. They're making their money. And if you don't protect their reputations, you're in big trouble as a quarterback. I don't care which quarterback you are. You don't hear any of NFL quarterbacks dumping their offensive linemen under the bus. And that was the one thing that I said about Shedeur during this past season, that no, you cannot do that.
And you only saw him do it once.
Yep.
You never saw him do it again. Why? Because I guarantee you, his father, not coach time, his father went to him and said, hey, I know what you were saying, but you can't do it.
That's right.
Say it. And here's the truth. Shedeur Sanders didn't actually throw them under the bus. He just told the truth.
Well, yeah, right? I mean, but again,
he just told the truth, but you can't do it.
You can't do that, right? You just can't do that.
That's the gig. And his father told him, hey, you can never do that again. So now that same father that would have given him words of wisdom, the same father that told Shiloh Sanders he was going to, or suspended Shiloh Sanders for a half when they was at Jackson State, because Shiloh Sanders wore a hood underneath the blazer that he told them that all to wear shirt and ties. He suspended his son, who was the starting safety, for a half because he wore the wrong uniform. And you're telling me that guy who doesn't let people wear their uniforms any old kind of way, even though all around the country they're letting them do it, right? That guy didn't talk to his son, who was scheduled to be a top 5 pick, about how to comport himself in a meeting with executives and with head coaches. It doesn't make any sense. But nobody's asked these questions. Nobody has put the Giants, and I'm saying the Giants because the Giants are the ones that we keep hearing as the catalyst for all of the rest of the stories. The Giants are the only ones that name has been put to it. And nobody has asked the Giants, hey, if Shedeur Sanders was like why would you make that public that he did that? Why would you just not talk to him? Imagine if a player came out of a meeting with a team and went to the press and went, yo, my meeting with this team was awful. They didn't really care about me being there. They were unprepared. We just went through the motions, right? They just did it because I felt like I was there because they just thought they needed to have me there to prove a point. Imagine if a player did that, because we all know that has happened to players. Players have gone to teams where that team didn't really care about the player being there. They treated him like he was just some rando, and then they went on and did the rest of whatever they were doing. Imagine that player came out and said that publicly, how much people would call him awful and say he's spilling tea and that he's saying stuff that's not supposed to be said. Yet we allow these teams to just absolutely character assassinate these players without any type of pushback.
Well, and that's the other thing that came out in this quote unquote draft class, and it has everything to do with the NIL money. Is now there's a third category. This player does not love football. Really?
Stupid. Yeah.
Where do you come up with this? I heard that about Walter Nolan. I heard it about James Pierce. James Pierce doesn't like to communicate with people. That's his only issue. On the football field, he is a fine football player. That's where you judge these players from.
Yep. No,
I don't
agree.
understand
I think a lot of what we've heard, it feels weird because it's like they don't want players to have money when they come into the league, because if they have money when they come into the league, it's harder for them to control them, right? The control is, hey, you don't want to mess up the bag. But if they already have a bag and they've taken care of their money, right, and they've been smart with it, then they're not beholden to the league. But when did not being beholden to the league mean that you don't love football? Shedeur Sanders played a lot of football for free before he got to the point where he was getting NIL money, right? And
Absolutely.
James Pierce played a lot of football for free before he got to NIL money. And I'm 100% sure someone told him, someone told Walter Nolan, someone told Shedeur, they told all of the people. You think Cam Ward went to Miami because he really wanted to go to Miami? Or do you think Cam Ward went to Miami because they backed up the Brinks truck and said, hey, we're about to give you this boatload of money to come in here and be our quarterback? Yet nobody said that Cam Ward didn't love the game. Why? Because Cam Ward didn't show you he had money. Doesn't mean that he didn't have money. So is the problem that the player has money, or is the problem that the player is showing you he has money? Because everything that we know about a Shedeur Sanders is he doesn't really do much. All he does is work out and then stay at home and like make music. Well, who has a problem with that?
Well, right? He does have the Lamborghini, so I mean that that was.
He has a ton of cars.
Yeah,
but he doesn't drink. He doesn't smoke.
Nope.
Right? Like he doesn't do drugs. He doesn't drink. If he goes somewhere, he's going somewhere promotionally. He's at the home. He's one of the hardest workers. If you've watched any of the well-off stuff over the years, every single day he's out there working with his coach to get better, independent of what they're doing as a team. None of the narrative behind him makes any sense. And we just was like, yeah, cool. Yeah, no, they're telling the truth. Nobody questioned. It's just so strange. Like no one questioned it and said, where is this coming from? How does this actually fit? It's just like people saying James Pierce is a bad person because he has an issue with communicating that comes from the fact that a lot of people have issues with communicating. Like
bingo.
That doesn't make him a bad person, right?
And it certainly doesn't knock him down a draft board because of that.
It should.
It shouldn't. It shouldn't. But again, this is the no fun league, as I refer to it as, and of course the Giants being the guys that made Shedeur Sanders do this leg practice and all this other stuff. I knew right then and there that the Giants were not taking Shedeur Sanders. When they made him do that, I knew he was not their pick.
Yeah,
because
and I'm wondering why. So why make him do it?
Yeah. Right.
Because you want to embarrass him?
Well, I mean, John Mara I'm no big fan of John Mara for what he did to Ezekiel Elliott years ago. And he interfered with that whole case and made sure that Ezekiel Elliott was suspended for 6 games. I don't care. I saw Jerry. I mean, I was literally cheering for Jerry Jones, who I'm not a fan of at all, to go and smack the daylights out of Jonathan Mara because of what he did with Ezekiel Elliott. But again, it's the Giants. It's Madison Avenue, the big boys. Oh, you guys can get away with that stuff, huh? Well, this time, I want the Giants to be called out for exactly what you said. Yeah. Because the Giants deserve to be pounded on social media for what they said and did about Shedeur Sanders, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, but they won't. And the reason why they won't is because the people like the picks. Like that's why. Is because the people wanted them to draft Abdul Carter, and the people were jumping on the bandwagon of Jackson Dart. So like if the draft, but watch this. Watch in a year or 2 or 3, right? If things don't go the way they're supposed to go with the people that they drafted, the Giants fans will be the first people to turn on the head coach, the GM, and the owner. It only took them 1 year removed from a playoff berth to have a bad year and completely turn on the owner, the head coach, and the GM. It takes Giants fans no time to do that. Giants fans and Giants creatives. I get a lot of flack in that world because I'm not like a Giants fan. I cover the Giants, and so I care about them doing well because I know it's going to affect my listener base. But I'm not a Giants fan, so I'm not like I don't feel like I have to live or die with the decisions. I can be honest about them, right? And so I like a lot of things about what the Giants did in this draft, right? If we're talking about third round on, I think that they had some great picks. Not all of them were picks that I would have made right there, but they were all picks that I like. Right? And that's okay. Right? I thought that the Giants should get a big back to be a thunder back, right? And there were tons of big backs out there. They decided to go with a back that had more of a name, right?
Yep.
And my initial issue was like, yo, Cam Scatterboo's not a bit back. And then I had to stop and rewind and go, you know what? 5'8", 220.
Yeah.
Extrapolate that out to 6'4", that's probably like 235, 240, right? So with that, I was like, okay, they have their thunder, they just have a different version of it. And then
That's right.
I see what the vision is. If you're saying, hey, Cam Scatterbo is going to be the little bowling ball or wrecking ball that you can't see behind the offensive line, and then all of a sudden, boom, he pops out of the offensive line and he gets to full speed quick. He's not long speed fast, but his top speed he gets to within 2 to 3 steps. So he's going to hit that hole and get the top speed before the linebacker has a chance to react, because the linebacker's never going to see him behind all of these 6'4" and 6'5" and 6'9" dudes playing offensive line. So I looked at it and went, okay, I can get down with that, right? But because they took him where they took him, that left the void of filling the defensive tackle until they got to the next round. And I like their pick. Like, I like the defensive tackle from Toledo. I think that he's a really good late bloomer. He started at Toledo and it was really just kind of like slow motion. But he built himself into a really, really good run stopping defensive lineman. And so, like, when you look at a guy like Alexander and say, okay, well, where does he fit into this defense? I go, well, he's athletic enough to be a run stopping DN in a 3-4, and he's big enough and strong enough to be a legitimate 3 tech in a 40 front. That's the type of defensive lineman you want next to a Dexter Lawrence, because if Dexter's playing a 0, you can have him play the 4-eye. If Dexter's playing the 1, you can have him play the 3 technique, right? So I love the pick. It's just one of those that I went, oh, well, if they had taken defensive tackle in the 3rd round in the 4th round, then they may have gotten somebody different and they still would have had backs that they could have taken in the 5th round. But they just flipped it, and that's fine. Like, I don't have any problems with that.
Yeah, no, exactly. And then getting Marcus Mebo in the 5th round was just, I was stunned that he was still there.
I thought he would be an early day 3 pick. I thought when he didn't go in day 2, which is what a lot of people thought he was going to go.
Yeah.
I thought he would come off the board in like the first 5 picks. And I think I switched that order, right? They took Scatterbo in the 3rd, and they put Alexander in the 4th round. And then Bo, who I thought they should have taken in the 4th round, ended up falling to them in the 5th round. And I was like, yo, that's a win. Like, that's a win. And so getting a guy who I believe is maybe a good summer and a really good camp away from being a guy who can be a starter, who doesn't have to start, because the Giants offensive line has been getting much, much better, right? Like that's a win. You haven't seen that out of the Giants in a while, where they have starting caliber guys as backups. And I think you now see that on the defense, because even if Abdul Carter starts, right, that means that Kayvon Thibodeau, because it's not going to be Brian Burns, that means Kayvon Thibodeau is now a backup, but he's a starting caliber guy. And if Kayvon starts, then Carter's a backup, right? Alexander probably won't start, but he's a starting caliber backup. And now Bo on the other side, a starting caliber backup, which is going to then mean if Evan Neal works out at guard, which it's been announced that he's going to train at guard, then that means that you have a guy who started last year for them that's going to the bench. That's another starting caliber guy as a backup. So now you've got a swing tackle, you've got a swing guard center.
Yep.
Right? You've got two guys who have played tackles on the left and the right side that are career backups that have starting have been starters before. That's a level of depth we haven't seen for the Giants in quite some time.
No, exactly. I mean, that's always been the reason why the Giants have been in last place in the NFC East for several years now, except for that one playoff season that you guys had, has been the lack of a defensive front that has depth, and the offensive line has always been weak. Yep. Even when Saquon was there, when Saquon was making his yardage not based upon the O-line.
Yeah, no, I agree. But also a lot of it came because there was no answer when Andrew Thomas went down with injury.
Yeah.
Right. And so the Andrew Thomas injury would just set off the dominoes of, okay, this offensive line isn't really that strong anyway. But in the year when they went to the playoffs, by the way, Evan Neal was starting at right tackle.
Yep.
For most of that year. When they went to the playoffs, they were able to overcome those injuries because they had gotten out to such a lead that they were able to absorb a few losses that didn't kill them. But really what happened was Andrew Thomas didn't get hurt, right? Like Andrew Thomas played, it was one of the rare seasons that Andrew Thomas has played a full season. And so with him playing a full season, they've been fine. On the defense, Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams on the defensive line wrecking shop, right? Like they had what they were looking for. Kayvon Thibodeau started the season on the injured reserve, came back, or not on the injured reserve, but missing, I want to say 3 games with injury, maybe 4, and came back. He showed glimpses of a guy that they took with a top 5 pick, right? And so they had the things, and then the next year, they didn't re-sign players, right? They let Love go in free agency. They got rid of Leonard Williams halfway through the season. They didn't re-sign, I believe it was Ward. They didn't re-sign. So they didn't have Ward back on the defensive line. So now, like, those holes started to open up on the defensive side of the ball. Kevin Zeitler didn't come back.
Right.
Right? So, like, we saw the holes start to, and there was no replacement. There was no young, up-and-coming, this dude is good enough to start, that's a replacement. And what I think they have now is that they have in various places guys who have an ability to be a starter right now that don't have to be a starter. And that's going to make you better. That's why the defensive line and offensive line for the Cowboys have been good for so many years, is because they had guys who were backups that had starting ability, but they didn't have to start them. And now the Cowboys are feeling a little bit of that from guys retiring and guys going to get paychecks and all that, where they have to replenish the coffers. And like you said, I don't know if they've done the greatest of jobs of doing that so far.
Well, in the last 2 drafts, they certainly haven't.
Yeah,
You know, this year, different story.
yeah.
I mean, they addressed they addressed free agency. They did what they have to do in free agency, and why everybody gets so hyped up about free agency is beyond me. Most of these guys are 1 to 2 year talents left in the league. That's why they're
Mm-hmm.
still free agents. That's all the Cowboys did. They signed guys to 1 year deals, 1 year deals. There was 1 2 year deal, and that was Solomon Thomas,
Yep.
right? But they got Peyton Turner, who is a very good edge rusher against the run. He's very good at it.
Mm-hmm.
Then they get to the draft, and Izaraku is sitting there. I mean, this guy was my 19th player on my board. This is how the draft went for the Cowboys. My 15th player was their 3rd round pick. Their 19th player on my board was their 2nd round pick, and their 28th player on my board was their 1st round pick. So I got my 3 guys in reverse order on my board. And it's just
I still do like their. I mean, I still do like their 1st round pick.
Oh, Tyler Bookie, there's nothing wrong with this kid. I mean, he went to the University of Alabama as an 18-year-old kid and said, I am your right guard as of today. And he just showed Nick Saban first, and then the former Washington head coach this year, DeBoer.
DeBoer, yeah.
I am the best right guard on this line. And he was the leader of that line.
Yeah,
from day one.
And I do like the idea that he might have flexibility to possibly be a center one day. Like, I think that you got a guy who has everything up here.
Yep.
That you need and everything in here that you want from an offensive lineman.
He's already signed his deal and everything. He's already done. But when he came out and said, I want Carter, I want him.
Mm-hmm.
I want to bully Carter. Okay, you're a Cowboy. You understand this. You get this. I mean, he wanted nothing but Jalen Carter. Okay, so let's go.
Well, in fairness, you know why he wants Carter, though, right?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I mean, that's SEC. That's SEC talk.
Yeah, no, it's good stuff. It's good stuff. But like, Carter got the best of him in some of those, matchups in the past, and so I think he wants some get back. But
he was only a freshman. He was only a kid,
that's what I'm saying. He
right?
wants some get back, right?
Yep.
But like, that's the part. Like, isn't that what it's all supposed to be about? Like, football players they're gladiators. They're not supposed to be the guys ducking the smoke. So like, the fact that he's willing to come out and just say, no. That's the guy I'm looking for. Right? You got to get excited about that as a fan. And I think that a lot of these, like blessed in the NFC East, is that those 4 fan bases, they want the smoke.
Oh yeah.
Those 4 fan bases, they want it.
I mean, even if the Eagles now have, 2 Super Bowls, I mean, okay, that's it. But the NFC East has the most Super Bowl titles in the NFL to this day. Bottom line, of any division in football, the NFC East still is number 1. So, I mean, you want to get me angry. I mean, real angry. You get those Washington Redskins guys. I used to despise that team with such a passion. I mean, absolute hatred. Now that they're the Commanders, I mean, they're okay, yeah, but they've gotten better. Good.
And their fan base is still their fan base. Like, they came out the woodwork when all of a sudden Washington was good again, right? And they started beating their chest. And it's like, this is what it's all about. Like, this is why we love it. This is why the game is so popular. It's why the world shuts down on Sundays at 1:00, or wherever you are, the equivalent of that time, right? It's because when these teams are good or competitive, it just brings out the fire of the fans, and nobody's going to be more hyped to see, a guy say, hey, no, I want to beat him. Like all this
Yep.
other stuff is cool. I want to beat him. Like
Yep.
nobody's going to be more excited about that than the fans of that team and that player. And so it's fun to watch. It's fun to watch.
And now those Cowboys in the middle with Cooper Beebe, Tyler Smith, and Tyler Booker. That's 1,000 pounds of man.
It's a lot of
Those three guys are 1,000 pounds. You want to come at Dak Prescott up the middle, you're going to have to go through a lot of beef to get to him.
Yeah.
You know?
No, it's a beautiful thing. Like you said, they didn't do a great job of it the previous two drafts, and that's what kind of allowed the coffers to get a little bit thin. But they addressed what they needed to address this year. And you know, it's very fitting. Like to watch the Cowboys not have a dominant offensive line would be weird, right?
Well, the Great Wall of Dallas in the 1990s, and none of those guys were ever first round draft picks either.
None of them.
Unlike Zach Martin and Tyron Smith and Travis Frederick in this more modern era, none of those guys on the Great Wall of Dallas were ever a first round draft pick.
Yeah, no, but I think that was a product of being able to identify the market inefficiency, right? And so nowadays it's harder to identify that market inefficiency. And that's why people are taking more and more linemen early. But just like every year, you see guys like Marcus Bowe who like fall.
I was stunned.
What is he doing? Like, how is he sticking around in day 3?
He's at 154.
Yeah,
it's
crazy. It's
because
crazy
he was my 69th ranked player.
Yep. No, I'm with you. Like, I think that people overthink it, right? Oh, like Mimbo, not that tall, you know, not that big, only just over 300 pounds. You know, oh yeah, he's quick, but he needs to add a little bit more like girth. And I'm like, no, he doesn't. He just needs to get stronger, right?
Yeah.
Like it. He doesn't need to get any bigger. He's athletic as all get out. He needs to get a little stronger. Oh, well, where is he really a tackle or is he a guard? And my answer always is yes. Like, who cares if he's a tackle or if he's a guard? If you have offensive linemen who have an ability to be good at both, figure out where they're going to be the best at, put them there, and then put someone else there.
Donovan Jackson proved that at Ohio State this past year because he was their guard.
Yep.
And when Josh Simmons went down, Donovan Jackson had to go out and play left tackle. And guess what? Except for that one game against Abdul Carter, and really that was only for a half of the game.
I was about to say, yeah.
It was only half of that game where Donovan Jackson struggled against Abdul Carter. And outside of that, Donovan Jackson was the key reason why the Ohio State Buckeyes won the national title. Bottom line to me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And when you think about that and then say, oh, well, now I have an alignment who I know could be a left tackle.
Yep.
And I know he can be a left guard.
Yep.
Like, he can walk in and play right now at both positions. What position is the least strong of the two? And that's where I'll put him. Like, getting hung up on whether or not this guy has the prototypical size. I watch 6'9" guys struggle. I watch 6'3" guys, 6'4" guys ball out at tackle. So
exactly.
So who cares, right? Like, who cares? If you can block him, that's all that should matter. And Marcus and Bowe, he can block him.
Oh, right? Absolutely. Absolutely.
Jackson, he can block him. And so the Giants fans should be really excited about it. And what they've got in Bowe and the fact they were able to get him so late in the draft. I mean, it's a beautiful thing.
Oh, absolutely it is. And again, people don't understand that rounds 4, 5, 6, and 7 really matter. They really don't understand that part. And because they all talk about the top 100 players. Okay, that's the third round. Okay, yeah, but the NFL teams have 7 rounds for a reason, folks.
Yeah. And they
It's
used to
because
have more.
yes, oh
They
yeah,
used to have
oh
more.
yeah,
That's the crazy
oh
part.
yeah. I mean, it was
I think it's really interesting because a lot of these fans were surprised this year because they were watching day 3 because Shadur Sanders hadn't been picked yet.
yep.
So that brought a lot of the casuals back for day 3 where they would have normally checked out.
Yep.
But because of the where is he going to land at, the NFL had some of the best ratings they've ever had for day 3 of the draft because people were waiting to see Shadur Sanders get picked. And it's interesting because once he got picked, it was like
Boom.
a nosedive.
Nosedive. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But they got a chance to see some stuff. Like they got a chance to see some jewels get picked in the 4th round and some jewels get picked in the 5th round before they started to tune out. And if they would have kept watching, they would have saw how much talent that had high grades were going in the 6th and the 7th round because there was so many edge rushers taken and there were so many defensive tackles taken and there were so many offensive linemen taken
Yep.
that it made a lot of these wide receivers and running backs that would have normally gone higher. It made those guys push down not only into the back end of the draft, but even into free agency.
Yeah, the UDFA market. There was only 25 running backs taken this year, and this was a deep running back class. Yep. 30 had been drafted in 2011 and 2017, so it was didn't touch the record of 30.
And we all thought it would. We all thought.
Oh yeah. I mean,
and they got squeezed out by the trenches. Like the trenches is really what doomed the running backs because it wasn't the wide receivers. The wide receiver class wasn't top heavy. It was a bunch of really good wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 types, but not a lot of guys who had wide receiver 1 potential, in my opinion.
There was no Marvin Harrison in this class.
Yeah. So that was interesting, but that just meant that people were able to sign some guys as undrafted free agents that probably shouldn't have been undrafted free agents, right?
Yeah.
That's always going to be good. One of the guys that I think about, or actually a couple of guys that I think about, for the Giants is they didn't take a wide receiver in the draft. It was one of my biggest issues that the Giants didn't take a wide receiver in the draft.
We're talking the same territory here because everybody was saying wide receiver 2 for the Cowboys is a need, but Schottenheimer allowed his scouting staff to say this is the best player on our board at this position, and that's what we're taking. That was the biggest difference for the Cowboys. They allowed their scouts to do their jobs. They did. There wasn't the Dan Quinn who said, I want Kelvin Joseph and Nashawn Wright, and I want no. The coaches, they stayed out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
That is the biggest single difference as to why this Cowboys draft was so much better.
I mean, you might be right, but we'll see, right? I know for the Giants, not addressing wide receiver, I thought was a mistake, but then I also knew that there were a lot of wide receivers still available as undrafted free agents. And they got a few guys that I think they all won't make the team because it's just not enough of them. They all have the opportunity to make a team. Bo Collins, the wide receiver from Notre Dame, who also played at Clemson for several years. I think he has an opportunity to stick. He's got some things to work on as far as, quickness and getting in and out of breaks. He wants to get better at that. Daquan Felton, the 6'5", 6'5" kid from Virginia Tech that started at Norfolk State. He has an opportunity to stick because they need a big body wide receiver on that team to be able to help. And then, like, quiet as it's kept, a guy that I was surprised didn't didn't go in the draft because I thought people would look at his total body of work instead of just his final season. Juice Wells from Ole Miss. Like the Giants was able to sign Wells, and Wells was just a product of a guy who made one too many transfer moves, right? Like he made it work at multiple places. He was good at he was no not good. He was great at James Madison as an FCS team. He was one of the reasons that they were able to take that leap and go to FBS. Then he went to South Carolina for 2 years, and like his first year at South Carolina, almost 1,000 yards out of nowhere. Second year got hurt. And then instead of staying the course and staying with South Carolina, he decided to jump and go to Ole Miss, which I'm assuming had to be for some type of monetary gain, right? Because it didn't make any football sense to go and be the number 3 guy at Ole Miss when you're the number 1 guy at South Carolina. Yeah, so I think it was
and I think it hurt him. I also think it hurt the Gamecocks because the Gamecocks start to this season sucked, but by the end of the season, the Gamecocks were definitely one of the best teams in the SEC, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, even go to Cornelius, the guy that the Cowboys took in the 6th round. Oh, he also played right tackle for Dylan Gabriel, the same guy that Tyler Guyton, who was taken in round 1 last year, was at Oklahoma. Well, this guy's been the right tackle, protecting the blind side of Dylan Gabriel. And they said originally he was going to be a guard, but now they're referring him as just an interior offensive lineman. But we don't know where he's going to end up. But I've got him as a right tackle because I saw the way that man played right tackle was just fine.
Yeah, and I think he's got quick enough feet to be able to move, and like the right tackle nowadays has to be athletic enough because most people put their premier edge rushers on the left side because the right tackle is over it, right? So it's a lot more of them having to be
the left tackle came into being because of UNC Lawrence Taylor attacking that left-hand side constantly, and that's where left tackles came into being in the NFL as, we got to get this big beefy guy up here, and I mean beef, plus he's got to be able to move quickly, et cetera, and that's where the left tackle position came into play. Right tackle position was all of a sudden a weaker spot, but now you've got guys like TJ Watt, Nick Bosa, who are always attacking the right tackle. They're not going after that left tackle.
Well, and it didn't just start with them. Like, that's what I'm saying is like the left tackle came into prominence because people were worried about protecting the blind side of the quarterback because most quarterbacks are right-handed. And then people, like some defenders said, well, why do we care if the quarterback sees us coming if he can't block for himself, right? So and he can't run away from me. So let me put my best rusher against the weakest of the 2 blockers, and that's what facilitated teams to say, hey, we need to have better guys on the right side. And really more, we need to have a better pass blocker on the right side. So now you're starting to see where teams will have the more run dominant dude be the left tackle, and the more like pass savvy guy who might not be as good with the run be on the right side if you have to have the that dichotomy set up.
Which is unfortunate. Which is unfortunate for the Cowboys because Terrence Steele was a great run blocker. He's not been very good as a pass blocker. And so until the last 6 games or so of this last season, where all of a sudden he was actually doing his job. Terrence, please keep this up. But again, that's the dichotomy of trying to put a team together, right? And this is the part where most fans who watch the draft don't get. The guys that are taken in the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th rounds, they are also going to be out there on special teams
Yep.
And you get so many people saying, "Huh, well, special team doesn't really special teams doesn't matter."
Until it only matters once it matters.
Yeah, yeah,
Right? It
yeah.
only matters when you mess up. That's the only time it matters. Like
Well,
nobody cares. Nobody cares that your kickoff returner or your punt returner doesn't return kicks for a lot of yards. They only care if they fumble the ball
yep,
or if they
yep.
muff a punt or muff a kick. That's the only time that they care. Other than that, they don't care if you are if you're taking them to the house. Like they don't think about the long snapper ever until the long snapper rolls one back there. They
Yep,
don't care how good your punter is until they shank one. They don't
yep.
care about your kicker until he misses a 35-yarder, which should be a chippy in the NFL, right? And so these people don't understand the game at a level that a lot of us have dedicated our lives to understanding the game at. I'm not mad at them. I just wish they would be more honest about it, right?
Well, yeah, yeah,
You know,
exactly. Because all I hear in DM rooms and all that, it's the quarterback, it's quarterback, it's quarterback. Hello, hello, hello. He's one player out of 11 guys on that field. Do you not understand that Lamar Jackson can only be Lamar Jackson when he has blocking, when he has
absolutely.
absolute blocking? When Pat Mahomes is scurrying loose and all that jazz, he needs receivers who can get separation. And those passes that these guys throw, they are far from perfect. You need a guy who can go up and get a football or dive at a football.
Yep.
That's football. It's not just the quarterback.
Absolutely. They're
Right?
not the a good completion percentage for a quarterback is failing on a test.
Mm-hmm.
Right? A 66, 67%, and you're a good, you have great accuracy for a quarterback. But if you really think about it, that 67 isn't passing the test. Right?
No.
And so all those other times, and I played receiver and I played tight end. A lot of times, what you end up doing is you end up as a receiver or tight end trying to make sure that the bad ball doesn't turn into a worse ball.
That's right.
Right? But now you've got the PFFs that'll tell you, oh well, he was on target. And I'm like, no, that was me making sure the ball didn't get intercepted. Because if I don't get my hand on it and knock it down, it walks, it goes right into the chest of the defender that's behind me. Like I shouldn't be devalued for that.
No.
Right? Just because you don't understand how the game works, you don't understand the nuance of the game. Like, no, I should be applauded for that. And in a locker room, or excuse me, in a classroom when you're talking with your coach, the coach is going to tell you, hey, that's a good job of knocking that ball down. But nobody sees that in the newspaper. No one's talking about it on the podcast. No one's doing a breakdown of how you kept that ball out of the hands of the defender. They're just saying, oh, well, XYZ receiver tight end got this many targets. And nobody's saying how many of those targets were targets where the wide receiver or tight end was able to catch the ball, turn, and do something with it.
That's right.
Because those are two different types of targets.
Yep.
For instance, Wan'Dale Robinson had 140 targets last year. He had 90 catches. He had like 600 yards. That's awful.
That's it.
That's terrible production.
Yeah.
Right? But if you look at some of the passes, he was getting, it's catch and get hit. Catch and get hit. Catching and I turn around, it's two people waiting for me. What is he supposed to do with those? Right?
He's not going to be able to do much when he's got a safety and a corner or a linebacker and a safety hitting him.
Right in his face, you know? And so I give him a lot of flack because I thought he could have been better. But then also I acknowledge that's a 50-50 thing for him. 50% of that is on him. 50% of that is on the offense and how the offense was being generated, and more importantly, how the quarterback was then like executing that offense. And
Yep.
so when you look at a Darius Slayton, a guy who wasn't utilized to his best ability, and fans wonder why the Giants gave him a new contract. They don't, in my mind, the new contract says we didn't use him right last year. He should have had way more targets than he had last year, because his target numbers and his catches ended him up with almost as much yards as Wan'Dale Robinson had, and Wan'Dale Robinson had over double the amount of targets and double the amount of receptions. So sometimes your coach realizes, oh, I did this wrong. Let me have another shot at it. I think you'll see it this year. It's going to look different. Hopefully they utilize Wan'Dale Robinson the way that they were utilizing him more his first year before he got hurt, and then his second year when he came back from injury.
Yeah.
Like, I hope they utilize him more like that, more times with him with the ball in his hand, out of the backfield, jet sweeps, screen passes, and let the other guys do that stuff. And maybe we could finally see a Jalen Hyatt be able to show
what he can actually do downfield.
Absolutely. Show something. Goodness gracious.
Because again, I mean, Danny Dimes, who I mean, he was never supposed to be a top 10 draft pick. That was just a horrible decision once again by the Giants, who they continue to mess up the draft constantly. I mean, Danny Dimes was a 6th player taken. Are you kidding me? There was just no way.
It's definitely one of those ones where you scratch your head at, but that's not on this regime.
No, it isn't.
That's not on this regime.
No.
What is on this regime is doubling down on him and giving him that contract. Instead of, because there was two bad moves, and I think this is where the winning in 2021 or 2022, excuse me, really hurt the team and their progression forward. They didn't pick up his 5th-year option, and they didn't pick up his 5th-year option because that year was supposed to be a make or break year. If we're being honest, that year was not a year where you say, I'm going to pay this person $40 million a year. That was the
defense. That was the defense.
Yeah, but it was like, okay, he did well, but he didn't do great. He wasn't the reason. Like, Barkley was the reason when he was healthy, and that defense balled out. That should have been them saying, we'll be willing to let him go.
But see, this is why I like this year's draft for the Giants, because it gets the Giants back to being what they used to be. Even Eli Manning did not deserve to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I don't care what he did in the 2 games against the Patriots. I don't care what he did against those Patriots in the 2 Super Bowls, because those defenses won those games for the Giants. That's
no.
Oh yeah, come on now.
No.
Come on now.
Those defenses carried the water in the regular seasons.
That's what I'm saying.
In the playoffs, when the playoffs started, Eli Manning was a monster. I don't know what happens to him in the playoffs that he's not able to consistently do in the regular season. But for those 4-game stretches,
he was great in both of them. He was very good in both of them,
superhuman, including in the playoffs. So I won't do that to him. My issue with him not getting in on the first ballot is you can't name me a quarterback who's won multiple championships with his numbers who weren't first ballot Hall of Famers.
But did he ever lead the league in passing? No. Did he, et cetera, et cetera? No. All that sort of stuff that everybody looks at now means that he was not going to.
Hindsight, though, that's my problem. I think it's hindsight, because everybody with his numbers overall,
and we're all first ballot Hall of Famers
and championships. That's the thing. There were guys getting in who have no championships. He has championships and his stats in the playoffs are some of the most gaudy stats that you're going to see of a quarterback in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And so for him not to get in, I thought it was kind of low. I'm not upset at it because I know he'll eventually get in, and that's all that
right.
really matters.
Yeah.
But I thought that them keeping him out as a first ballot was kind of one of those, we can't let you and your brother get in as first ballot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And even though Eli is much funnier than Peyton,
yeah,
because he's funnier. He's much funnier than Peyton.
He's
Manning
more naturally funny. He's just more naturally funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that's because Eli is just a more fun guy to be around than Peyton.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would want to have a beer with Eli more than I would want to have a beer with Peyton.
Exactly.
Don't get me wrong. I want to have a beer with both of them. But I would want to have a beer with if you told me you got to pick one, I'm picking Eli. Eli had more fun in college than Peyton did.
Oh, absolutely.
I guarantee you. Eli at Ole Miss, come on now. Eli was the man. And I mean, Peyton probably had a great time in Tennessee. There's some stories that I won't repeat because they don't paint him in the greatest of light. But Eli was enjoying himself in college, and I could only imagine that. So I agree with you. He's the funnier of the two, but I do think that keeping him out of the Hall of Fame on the first ballot was less about him and him deserving it and more about them saying, we can't let both of y'all in. Like, somebody's going to have to have some adversity when it comes to this thing. Because like I said, the track record is already there. It's like when I think about people who are playing right now. Patrick Mahomes doesn't have to do anything else. He's already a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yep.
Right? Just based off the body of work. Mike Tomlin doesn't have to coach another game. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. Everybody that's done what he's done is in the Hall of Fame. Right? So it doesn't matter all of that other stuff. It just matters on whether or not they want to give the person their recognition now or whether they want them to wait.
See, now the Tomlin in this 18 seasons of being in the playoffs in a row, that's too many. That's too many. Coach Landry had the 21 seasons. That's number one. That needs to remain. Bottom line. So the Steelers have to be in last place this year. I don't care if Aaron is their quarterback or not. No. Tom Landry needs to be number one on that.
I'll tell you, if they get Aaron Rodgers, then you're probably going to have to hope for the next year it not to be good. Like, because if they get Aaron Rodgers, if they get a motivated Aaron Rodgers, even though I think Aaron Rodgers is one of the worst human beings in all of the NFL. He's not my brand at all. Like, I try to be as much of a pacifist as I can these days. I would get into a fight with Aaron Rodgers if he talked the way that he talks to some people. Like me as his receiver, we would go into the locker room and have a straightening period where when we came out of there would be a different Aaron Rodgers. And so there
would be an Aaron Rodgers with a broken jaw.
Yeah. There would be a wired shut jaw Aaron Rodgers, or just a lumped up Aaron Rodgers, because I still need him to play, right? Just a lumped up Aaron Rodgers that understood you can't talk to me like that. You can't talk to anybody that I know.
Exactly. And you can't just assume that because you're the quarterback, you're going to have a great relationship with every receiver without ever doing anything in the off season with those guys.
Investment. Yep, no investment in it.
No investment whatsoever. None. And that's the thing that really drives me crazy about Aaron Rodgers, is that there's no investment in the players that he goes out there on that field with. Really?
Yeah.
Come on now. I mean, that's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous.
It's crazy. It's definitely crazy.
So where do you have the Giants finishing this year?
I've said even before the draft that the Giants were an 8 to 9 win team. I think the 8 to 9 wins is what the floor is. Like, if anything less than 8 to 9 wins, there's going to be it needs to be serious talks about people losing their jobs.
Yeah.
This is the time. You've, like, what they did in free agency, to me, Like the pieces that they brought in free agency, I thought were good enough to fill holes that were there, right? So then that allowed them to be able to take more of the best player available, which also happened to be best player available of need, or best player of need available, where they can not have to force anyone into action. They can learn and progress naturally, right? So 8 to 9 wins is where I see it. I think that if they were foolish enough to have an open competition, people would be shocked, but Jameis Winston would probably like mop the floor with both of the other quarterbacks.
I'm not gonna disagree with you there, because I think Jameis has always been,
from a natural arm talent
yeah.
standpoint, he is head and shoulders better than both of those guys. And I also think that the turnovers for him gets a bad rep because he makes turnovers in bunches. So you'll see, if you ever just look at the stats from Jameis Winston, it'll be like 0 interceptions, 1 interception, 0 interceptions, 4 interceptions, 0 interceptions, 1 interception, 2 interceptions, 0 interceptions, 0 interceptions, 3 interceptions. The year that he threw 30 interceptions, I want to say, I believe 20 plus of the interceptions came in 5 games.
I think it was about 6 games, but you're close. You're close.
Somewhere close. If you actually ask me who I was a fan of, it's the Bucks. But like, he had several. He had 5, I want to say, games that were 3 plus, and maybe 6, like you said. Like, but and then he had games where he had 5 interceptions. But look at why he had the 5 interceptions. It is the gift and the curse of Jameis Winston.
That's right.
He's going to try to throw you back into the game, even when he should just like know when he's beat. The issue we see with Jameis is not understanding when he's beat. But if he understood when he was beat, like when he was in New Orleans that year where he had, I want to say it was 14 touchdowns and maybe like 2 interceptions.
Yep.
Before he got hurt. Like, Peyton had got into his mind, yo, you don't have to do it all. You don't have to win it all.
That's right.
Allow the team to, and he bought into it. And unfortunately, Sean Payton then moved on. And the message started going away because the people who came in after him didn't really believe in him and what he could do. And
Dennis Allen was the worst. Lord, that man, he was just horrifying to me. And again, that like you said, that 30 interception season for Jameis, that also had a lot to do with the actual receivers he had on that field, because those guys were terrible at coming back to the football for him. Yep. They were horrible at stopping defenders from stepping in front of them and picking them off.
And they also didn't create a lot of separation.
That's right.
It forced him to have to throw the ball high.
Yep.
In places where only his wide receiver could get it.
Yep.
And a few of them passes ricochet off the hands, into others, or just sailed on them.
Yep.
Where it went over into it. It's really like, I don't know if a lot of people have tried to dissect it, but there's a lot to be said about when you understand why someone throws an interception, whether or not you look at it the same way.
That's right.
Jameis Winston's interceptions a lot of times are products of trying to of trusting his arm too much.
Yep.
Or trying to do too much.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. It's one of those two.
Yeah.
And how can you really blame him? Because when he was with the Bucks, he had to do everything. They didn't have a run game. They didn't invest in the offensive line. You notice when Tom Brady came over and all of a sudden they drafted an offensive lineman, they brought in a couple other dudes, right?
Where was that for Jameis?
They never did it for Winston.
No.
They brought in all these extra like these extra weapons as pass receivers. It's like,
yep.
Jameis had Mike Evans. That was it. Like
That's
Mike
it.
Evans and some dudes. And
But
then,
he also had a young Godwin. He also ended up with a
well,
young
he
Godwin.
had Godwin for the 1 year.
Yep. Yep.
That was his got that 30 for 30 year was
Was
Godwin's
his rookie
rookie
years.
year.
Yep.
So like imagine him having a fully fleshed out Godwin and a Antonio Brown and a Rob Gronkowski to throw to, and then you go out and you bring in a battering ram in playoff Leonard Fournette, right?
Yep.
To come in there and so like there was just so many more elements to the team. Oh, by the way, they figured out, hey, we can't send 4 out on a route every time because Tom Brady's getting killed back here. Let's start keeping a tight end in.
Yep.
They never did that for Jameis. It was just
No.
It was five and a check release from the running back.
Yep.
And Jameis Winston figuring it out on the fly. It was no risk it, no biscuit. And them saying, hey, turnovers don't matter. Keep on firing.
That's right.
He did that. And,
and that's the other thing that really pees me off about people going after Jameis Winston and his interceptions that year is he was told to go out and fire that football.
Yep.
He was told to.
He was told to keep shooting.
Yep.
And he kept shooting. And if you notice, his completion percentage wasn't awful.
No, it wasn't.
He had his yards. His yards over 5,000 yards is one thing, but look at his yards per completion.
Bingo.
It was crazy amounts of yards on a per completion basis. He had over 30. He had over 32 touchdowns that year.
I think it was 32 and 30, right?
Yeah, 32 and 30. Like if we cut the interceptions in half, we probably put another 6 touchdowns on the board. You're talking about a guy going 38 and 15 with 5,600 yards. Like, I like where that was, and I wish they would have given him a second year in that regime to be able to see what it'd been like. Because I'm of the mind that if they would have added all of the stuff they added for Jameis that they had for Tom Brady, maybe they don't win a championship because like a lot of things fell right. But I think they would have been a really dangerous playoff team.
Yep. Absolutely right. So again, this is a Giants fan, everybody, and I'm a Cowboys fan, and listen to us agreeing on this stuff about football. Do you see how this works?
Yeah, you can be just fans of football. It's okay.
That's right.
It doesn't have to be like animosity. I don't get to affect whether or not the Giants win or lose.
No.
So it's okay.
Exactly, right? I mean,
I'm wearing a Baltimore Ravens t-shirt. Why my father, God bless his, God bless his soul, but my father, a huge Baltimore Ravens fan.
Yeah.
And my uncle, who's still with us, he's a big Baltimore Ravens fan. They've been in Baltimore forever, so I just happen to have it on.
Were they must have loved the Baltimore Stallions when they were there then.
Oh yeah, way back. They were fans of fans of everything Baltimore.
Yeah, like the original Colts and then the Stallions of the CFL. Yep. I remember when Baltimore beat, because I actually live in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, where the Stampeders are from. The only team from the Canadian Football League to ever lose the Grey Cup title from Canada is the Calgary Stampeders to the Baltimore Stallions. That's the only. The Stallions were the only U.S. team to ever win the Grey Cup. So, and those guys were just insane. The band and everything else that they had, and they still get together.
Yeah, no, it was my uncle said that at the time, like they came from areas, so it was at the time it was like that people like the people of Baltimore they're proud. And so anytime you give them something to be proud of, they show up. They show up in droves. And so that it was just one of those movements, right?
Yeah. Like
Where
Baltimore, I always thought Baltimore was this pretty place because you had the Pimlico racetrack and you had the
Mhm.
old ballpark, right? But that's all I ever saw of Baltimore was Pimlico and the Orioles stadium there, right?
Yep.
And then when I went there, I went, oh my God, this is not the same place that I thought of, right? It was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, this is not the nice place that I thought,
If
but
you if you go places, right?
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, obviously in anywhere that you go, any major city, there are places that you're gonna find the beauty, and then there are places you're gonna find the
places
beast.
you're gonna find the
There's
ugly,
places
the
you're gonna find
ugly.
the beast. And
Yep,
unfortunately in Baltimore, there's a lot of beasts.
yep. Which I never saw. Seeing Baltimore being on TV, and then
Yep.
of course when the Wire came on, I was like, okay, this is the Baltimore I
Yeah.
know. This is the
It's
Baltimore I saw.
it's hilarious too because like anybody who doesn't know, they're like, yeah, was the wire really that accurate? And I'm like, no, it's pretty spot on.
Yeah, it is.
Like,
It is definitely spot on. But again, I mean, that's just when I because I was actually born in the United States. Okay, so
mhm.
but my parents were both Canadian, so I lived up here as a young guy, and then I went down and joined the Marine Corps and all that fun sort of stuff. But when I went to Baltimore, I was just like, this is just not the real deal, is it? I mean, come on, where's Pimlico and of course by then they had Camden Yards, so that's the reason why I went was to go to Camden Yards, right?
Yep.
And Camden Yards was just gorgeous and all that jazz. But man, I'm telling you
Yeah,
that
there's some beautiful sites within Baltimore.
yeah, yeah,
Beautiful
yeah,
places, some absolutely like wonderful colleges and college
yeah,
campuses that are
yeah.
beautiful. But they're carved around some
The, yeah,
questionable areas.
exactly. That's the strange part is that it's all
Yeah.
carved around. It's like
Yeah.
John Hopkins is beautiful. Okay,
Yep.
yeah, yeah. Blah blah blah, and then you're going, um, no, I got to go back the other way.
Yeah, yeah. Turn around and
Turn
just
around. Yep, yep, yep,
yeah.
yep.
I
Because
got it.
I don't want to get killed in this neighborhood. No,
Oh
no,
my gosh. Yeah. No,
man, it was
you just have to be careful. Like,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
and unfortunately, it's like that in almost any major US city
yeah.
where
Oh
you
yeah,
can go too far down one street or you can make the wrong left and be in the wrong place.
yep,
Um, so
yep.
I don't want to just all negative on Baltimore because there is a lot of
Oh,
beauty.
there is
Um,
great, and the people in
yep,
Baltimore are
fantastic
fantastic
people.
people.
Yeah, but there are places that you just got to be careful of. That's for sure.
Yep, yep. And it was always a strange feeling that first time I was there. It was like, okay, now do I go? No, I got to go that way because that area is just not going to be good for me. And then I had to go across to another place, and but oh, I've got to go around that, because
Mhm.
and you get told right in a hurry. Like the good people of Baltimore will tell you, you got to go this part. Don't go to that part. Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, like they'll let you know pretty quickly
Yep.
where you need to go to.
Yep. I mean, I even found the same thing when I went into Compton.
Yeah,
I mean,
there's some areas.
and I mean that's in the days of Easy E and company, and I was in Compton. Uh, I was in my Marine Corps uniform.
That helps. That
Yeah,
helps.
that helped. That
Yep.
helped, right? But again, I went there. You know.
No, it's funny how that is, especially when you think about these cities, and a lot of these cities have football teams,
Yep.
or basketball teams attached to them, and so it's like you have to like a lot of the stigma, because you have to put these large cathedrals of sports in areas where they can fit, which means that the most likely the area around that place isn't always the greatest. And that's why you see a lot of the places try to renovate
That's
and
right.
and
Yep.
and put money into the area to make it more commerce so
Yep.
that they can have it be quote unquote safer. But everybody deals with it.
Yeah, I mean, even Jerry going out to Arlington instead of staying in
Absolutely.
Irving, it was
Yep.
the same idea. except Jerry was dumb and built his stadium facing east-west where the sun
Yeah,
comes in that window.
really weird.
Yeah. But that's just Jerry. That's just Jerry. So anyhow, Coach, tell everybody where they could find you here on.
Yeah, you can check out a Giant Issue podcast on the New York Giants on SI station and all of that jazz. And then obviously you can catch me on X at Gene Clemens and anywhere else at Gene Clemens.
Awesome. It's been a pleasure having you on this evening. And again, this is the final word. And the final word today is NFC East fans can get along with one another, folks. We can.
Peace out there. Peace.
Exactly right. All right. So again, this has been the final word. Next week, Jeff Barnes and myself are going to be on, and we're not talking football. It will not be football. It's going to be a show dedicated to our love of Star Trek. So watch out for that next week. And again, everybody, take care. Have a great night. See you all later.
Are you looking for hot takes and guests yelling over top of each other? Well, you came to the wrong place. This is the final word, where we talk about sports like they used to. All opinions are welcome, but that doesn't mean you are right. Hosted by Greg Rector, welcome in